Poco has released a new mid-ranger, the X3 GT, but it's not as new as you might imagine. It's a rebrand of the Chinese model of Xiaomi's Redmi Note 10 Pro. But even so, it's the first time most of us have seen it. How does it compare to Poco's other X3 branded phones? I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's find out in our full review. The Poco X3 GT looks a bit different from the other Poco X3 phones we've seen so far. The Poco logo is small and out of the way, and there's a pretty standard looking camera setup on the back instead of an X-shaped one. Our review unit has a black gradient finish that's quite glossy and mirror-like, and it collects smudges pretty easily too. There's a texture under the plastic back that really sparkles when it catches the light. The frame is also made of plastic, and overall the phone is grippy enough and comfy to hold. And just like many other Poco and Xiaomi phones, the X3 GT is IP53 rated for protection from dust and light splashes of water. On the front of the phone is a 6.6-inch IPS LCD with a 1080p resolution and a hole punch for the selfie cam. It should be quite durable too, thanks to Gorilla Glass Victus protection. The X3 GT's display has a super fast 120Hz refresh rate, just like the other Poco X3 phones before it. This adds extra smoothness to your swiping and scrolling, and thanks to a 240Hz touch sampling rate, it's all really responsive too. High frame rate gaming is supported as well, and to save energy, the refresh rate is adaptive and can dial all the way down to 30Hz based on the content. Overall, this display is nice. It's sharp enough, and the black levels are some of the deepest we've seen on an LCD. There's HDR10 support too, and while the colors aren't too accurate by default, you can achieve good accuracy if you tweak them in settings. We were pretty impressed by this display's minimum brightness. It goes all the way down to less than 1 nit. But max brightness is just alright. We measured 430 nits with a slider, and boost up to 540 nits in auto mode when out in bright sun. The Poco X3 GT has a stereo speaker setup. There's one at the bottom, and there's a top speaker that has grills both on the front and the top of the frame. They scored just average on our loudness charts, but they're well balanced and the sound is impressively rich. One thing you won't find on the Poco X3 GT is a headphone jack, unlike other Poco models like the X3 NFC or the X3 Pro. And you also don't get expandable storage here. The phone comes with 128 or 256 gigs on board, so choose which one you need wisely. The interface of the X3 GT is Xiaomi's latest MIUI 12.5 based on Android 11. Since this is a Poco phone, you get a slightly different system theme and icons. There are some proprietary apps here, like the gallery, the music app, and the video player. MIUI allows you to split your traditional notification shade into 2 different panels. There's a notification center, accessed by swiping on the left corner, and a control center by swiping on the right, which contains all of your quick toggle options. There's also an app drawer, and it can sort your apps into different categories which are customizable. And waking up and unlocking the phone can be done with a side-mounted fingerprint reader/power button. It's incredibly responsive. The GT in this phone's name refers to Gran Turismo, like a sports car. Poco is referring to the power under the hood, hoping to attract the gamer crowd. The GT has a new MediaTek Dimensity 1100, built on a 6nm process. It provides plenty of power as well as 5G connectivity. In benchmarks, the performance is great, on par with the Snapdragon 860 within the Poco X3 Pro. Although it's not quite as powerful as the top flagships, it's still flagship grade. And both CPU and GPU wise, the X3 GT is one of the best in its price bracket. However, the X3 GT isn't very impressive as far as thermal management goes, despite an advertised advanced cooling system. We measured significant heating and thermal throttling just minutes after launching our stress test. But we will add that we didn't notice any slowdown appear in an actual game. The Poco X3 GT has a 5000 mAh battery, slightly smaller than the NFC or Pro models. However, battery life is still impressive, with the GT earning a score of 110 hours in our proprietary tests. And something you get here, which you don't on the other Poco X3s, is blazing fast 67-watt charging. With the bundled adapter, we were able to charge the phone from 0 to 75% in half an hour. And a full charge took just 48 minutes. Now onto the Poco X3 GT's cameras. There's a 64-megapixel quad-Bayer main cam, an 8-megapixel ultra-wide cam, and a 2-megapixel macro camera. Photos from the main cam come out at 16 megapixels by default, and these are outstanding for the class. There's plenty of detail with well-presented foliage and balanced sharpness. The colors are accurate, and the dynamic range is wide, even without the help of HDR processing. Portrait shots come out good, with accurate and dependable subject separation. The subjects are incredibly detailed too, with excellent looking colors. 8-megapixel photos from the ultra-wide are decent, if not spectacular. There's enough resolve detail, good contrast, and wide dynamic range. The colors don't match the main cameras though, coming out noticeably warmer. The 2-megapixel macro cam has fixed focus, and its photos are okay. You get enough detail for this resolution, as well as good contrast and accurate colors. In low light, the main camera does an excellent job for the class. There's a lot of detail, great sharpness, good contrast, true-to-life colors, and low noise. The dynamic range isn't too impressive though, with occasional blown highlights. Toggling on night mode will restore blown highlights and give you more development in the shadows. And the color saturation is improved too. All of that comes at the cost of some fine detail and sharpness though. On the main cam, there's also an auto night mode. With this feature enabled, the night mode is supposed to kick in if the scene is dark enough. In practice, it actually kicks in very rarely, so we suggest you opt for the manual night mode when you feel like using that. At night, shots from the ultra-wide are okay. They're noisy but sharp enough, and colors are well preserved. If you turn on night mode, the quality is drastically improved. Blown highlights are restored, and there's more detail in shadows. And you also get less noise as well as more resolved detail. Selfies are taken with a 16-megapixel front-facing cam. These are balanced and natural looking, with enough detail, nice contrast and colors, and above-average dynamic range. Videos can be recorded with the main cam in up to 4K resolution at 30 FPS. These look amazing for the class. There's plenty of detail, great sharpness and contrast, no noise, and accurate colors. The dynamic range is praiseworthy too. The ultra-wide cam can shoot in up to 1080p resolution. This footage is good. It's sharp and detailed with low noise, accurate colors, and above-average dynamic range. There's electronic stabilization available on both cameras in all resolutions. It comes with a minor loss in the field of view and a bit of added softness, but it does a good job in smoothing things out. So that's the Poco X3 GT. You get a shiny and water-resistant design, a nice 120Hz LCD screen, stereo speakers, great battery life, and super fast charging. The chipset is flagship grade, and the cameras really impressed us, both with photos and video quality. There are a few nitpicks to consider though. There's no headphone jack or expandable storage, and the thermal management could be better if you're into gaming. But probably the biggest downside is the availability. This isn't exactly a global phone, but one only available in select markets. But if you're able to get the Poco X3 GT, it's definitely worth recommending. It's a value-packed mid-ranger that not only offers the standard fare of flagship-killing features, but also a great camera experience too. Thanks for watching guys, stay safe and see you on the next one.